And we're live. Welcome, folks. Hello out there, Internet. This is Nerdside Chats, week 2 or episode 2. I'm going to want to ask you to all just like, share, subscribe, jump in here in the live chat with us so we can get your takes. And this week, we're going to be talking Agatha All Along, episode 3. It's week 2, episode 3. We've got our opinions locked and loaded. But before we get started, I want to introduce you to this week's special guest from the M6P. You know him. You love him. He owns more trades than you. It's Jarid.
That's
There
right.
he is. You'll a long time people. You'll all remember Jarid with his hot take about Storm and the battle that he fought with Tim.
Yeah, I'm still licking my wounds. I'm still
Yeah.
licking my wounds over that one, guys. I mean,
The first winner.
the first nerd champ. That's right.
The first nerd champion was Jarid. So, but we'll probably be a little less contentious today between Jarid and Tim as we dissect our reactions to Agatha All Along, season 1, episode 2. I don't think we have to put a season designator. This feels more like a mini series than any kind of a series type thing. So I want to open us up. We've got in the chats here, and I wanted to say this right up top anyway. Barry Allen is slow. I envy Sharon at the end. Take me with you, Miss Hart. I wanted to start by saying R.I.P. Sharon Davis, a.k.a. Mrs. Hart, a.k.a. Deborah Jo Rupp, a.k.a. Kitty. We all know her as Kitty, and we love her as Kitty. Kitty Foreman. Gone but not forgotten. Our Greenwich stand-in did not make it through the festivities.
Or did she?
Or
Yeah.
did she?
Nobody's ever dead in Marvel except for Uncle Ben, Dan. That's a lesson, right?
Yeah,
So,
Uncle Ben is the only one who's dead. We used to be able to say Bucky. For many years, we could say Bucky. He's starring in a movie that no one will buy a ticket for. So,
except for me and Jared, because
I'll be
we
there.
are
I
losers.
want to see Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
you guys could tell me all about it afterwards.
Yeah. So,
Oh, okay. So we did get a lot of clarification this week. All the mysteries that I think we had and all the speculation we had last week are spelled out in maybe a little bit too much detail this week. They actually explicitly stated that there will be challenges or tasks for each of the specialty witches at the top. They just laid that out like, hey, each of you are going to have a task to complete. We did get our task completed for our potion witch, Alice, this week. We found out that Teen has a sigil placed on him, so no witches can hear who he is or what he is, which begs the question if it's
who he is.
Yeah. But if it's only witches, then why didn't Sharon just turn and tell the other witches what his name is? Because she's not a witch.
Yeah.
She lost. Yeah. Or is she?
Maybe she's the Agatha of this series, and she's just playing stupid. I don't know.
She'll have her own show next year.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then they laid it out. I did go back and Google the lyrics to the song because I guess there was a line in the song, and they told us there was a line in the song that said "Tame your fears," and they did have to tame their fears this week. So I was looking for more hints, but there weren't any other hints in the song. There's just like "Stay on the road." The road is creepy. It was all very vague, except for the "Tame your fears" line.
Could you sing it for us, though, Dan? I would. It'd be better if you sang it for us.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't. I only wrote down the one line.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're standing. Jarid, you're the guest. I'll let you go first. How are you feeling about? You weren't here last week, so how are you feeling so far?
A little gassy, kind of constipated after every time I watch the episode. Now, I was talking to Tim earlier. I had to watch this episode in 3 segments, unfortunately, because I was just so not into it. And I didn't do that with Eternals. I didn't do that with Echo. This one is kind of doing it for me. I made it about 15 minutes last night. I made about 10 minutes this morning, and then I came back to it at lunch. I was able to. I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed first because we even have this at all. Nobody wants this. I think if that song it was Agatha all along would not have been so catchy, I don't think that this show would have ever happened. But I think people just fell in love with that. They memed it. People hadn't even seen the show or could spell Marvel, knew what that meme was. And so immediately Marvel said, let's run this into the ground. And I think it shows. We've got 9 episodes of overacting just to the gills. It's so overacted. I could get them playing a little bit into that hocus pocus kind of vibe, but this is I'm getting like middle school play of how overdone they are just doing everything.
So, Timmy, we had your feels on some of this last week. How are you feeling this week? Is it up? Is it down? I know you did enjoy the first episode.
I'm just really disappointed that I didn't get to drink the poisoned wine. That's pretty much what I would like to say. But because, this was a rough one, man. What really is disappointing to me about it, and I think that, at a certain level, the three of us kind of feel this way. It just kind of depends on what your different levels are of acceptance, like Dan and I went through last time. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I feel like right now Marvel has this really big problem where they just are not focusing on their key demographic. Their key demographic is 18 to 45 males. It's not that hard, right? It's us. All right. That we're the key demographic. But what projects do we have that are actually for us anymore? I mean, this project right here is the perfect example of something that, this is like a combination of like Charmed and What We Do in the Shadows and then Desperate Housewives and maybe throw a little Saw in there. There's a weird combination of things that is a very, very niche audience that is looking specifically for something like this. And it's not your key demographic for Marvel. That's the problem. Okay. And I feel like right now I go back, and if they were sprinkling a little of this into the MCU here and there, I wouldn't be as uptight about it. But the fact of the matter is, it feels like every project they give me is something that is focused on a demographic that is not me. And that's the problem, right? It's not 18 to 45 males. They're clearly trying to open their umbrella. I got no problem with them trying to be more diverse in their audience. I got no problem with that. But you cannot ignore who your key audience is at that expense. And that's my problem. When I take a look back at this, what has been for me recently? Echo wasn't for me. The vast majority of What If was not for me. Ms. Marvel wasn't for me. The Marvels wasn't for me. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, that was a 3-hour movie about Shuri, right? I got this show, and then I had She-Hulk, and now I've got Ironheart coming up. It just seems like they're focusing on the demographic that is not their key demographic. And ultimately, that's a problem. There's going to be nothing really for us. They did Deadpool and Wolverine, which was a parody of what I wanted. And then they did Guardians 3, which is a swan song for a franchise that I wanted. But they haven't really done anything for me in 2 years other than those two things. And so that's just kind of what is so frustrating about this to me. Is this is just I feel like we kind of, Dan, you and I talked about it. We nailed down exactly what the plot of each episode is going to be. We did it last week, and we were right on with it. We're going to go through incredibly stages. Predictable. And you mentioned teen. I think I'm starting to think the only purpose of this show was to introduce who Teen actually is. Okay. We know who he is. They just haven't said it yet. Okay. He's Wiccan. We know he's Wiccan. It's coming. And that's the only purpose. They're introducing Wiccan into the MCU. He's going to be in some kind of a side project. And that's going to be the whole purpose of what this show was for, was to introduce him. That's the way I see it.
And I don't follow speculation as closely as Tim does. I don't worry. I don't like spoilers, so I don't even like to see what's speculated. You did text me this week and tell me, hey, he's Wiccan, or at least that's what everybody says. And then I'm going to be totally honest, everybody. I've read comics since I was like 9 years old. I just had to prove my bona fides. You can find the nerd page, find Nerd Champs on Facebook. I just had to show somebody I have. I think it's like 20 long boxes and 4 short boxes in my mom's basement because I don't have room in my house. Okay. But Tim said he's Wiccan, And I had to ask Tim, okay, no spoiler here. Who is that? Tell me who Wiccan is, Tim, because my kids were born in like 01 and 03.
Yeah.
And I stopped reading a lot. I didn't buy it. I stopped collecting and I stopped doing a lot of reading in the early 2000s. So when you tell me, oh, it's Wiccan, I don't know who that is. That rings no bells for me. I'm not like, oh, spoiler alert, it's Wiccan. I don't know who Wiccan is. I've never read an issue of anything that featured Wiccan, either as a team member, a guest star, a dude in the back panel, an extra.
Jared's going to be your better resource on this than me, Dan. The only thing I can think of, is he in the Young Avengers, Jared? Is that one of the things that he's in, or
Yeah, he's Scarlet Witch's son.
Yeah. So
that was Tim's answer to who is Wiccan. So then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, he's one of the twins, and he's in Young Avengers.
I don't know what rosters he's on or anything like that. I knew he was Wanda's son, which is what I told Dan. Okay. But
potential spoilers if you're out there watching live.
Yeah, by the way, we've already kind of dumped that.
We're gonna threw that out there.
It's in the title. They should know. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, throwing Wiccan in there, and it would be a huge waste to do all this. Just introduce a character that they like. I'm not a normie. Okay. But I don't know who Wiccan is. and I would say that they constitute most of the population.
Yeah.
So,
that's for sure.
Now, I like this show. I'm going to come out. You guys hate it. I'm not disappointed. I like it. The way I'm looking at it is if you watched WandaVision and you liked WandaVision and you liked this character in WandaVision, then this show is good. This is what you would expect a show about that character to be. If I told you that we're going to make a show starring that character and featuring that character, this is pretty much the show you would imagine. And if you imagined you would like that show, you'll probably like this. If you imagined that you wouldn't like that show, which you guys, when you guys were told, hey, we're going to make a show about that character, you were like, I'm not going to like that. And you don't because they told us what they're going to make. They made what they meant to.
Yeah.
and they're delivering what they set out for, and you're in for it or not. And where I'm different is I'm not super upset with Disney and Marvel because I'm not a completist anymore. I got broken of being a completist long ago because these companies break your heart. So if they tell me what something's going to be, like, hey, here's a 3-hour movie called Black Panther, but Black Panther's not in it because he died and we didn't recast it. I'm not buying a ticket. I'm not even sitting at home at Disney Plus and spending 3 hours watching the Black Panther movie about his little sister. I'm not going to do it. When they make a movie where they say, you know what, the critics have all said we're not pretentious enough.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to make a movie that's super pretentious with a critically acclaimed director with great cinematography and good lighting. And we're going to smell our own farts like Prius drivers and tell you how great we are.
Eternals. Yeah.
I've never watched the Eternals.
Exactly.
I'm not going to watch the Eternals. They told me what it was going to be.
Yeah.
It is what they said it was. I'm not telling you it's bad. I'm not telling you either one of those projects are bad. I'm just saying they told me what they were. Everybody who's seen it said, yeah, that is what they are. I know I'm not in the market for it. So, and I'm not mad at them for making it. There are people out there who like those things. But see, that's the difference. I don't feel like, and that is the thing now with the MCU. It's gotten so widespread. It doesn't connect like it used to. I don't feel like you're going to feel lost if you skip it. If you didn't, if you knew you weren't going to like it, and then you skipped it, like I'm not lost because I haven't watched the Eternals or Black Panther. I don't feel like I've missed anything.
I almost think that's bad for the MCU, though, right? Is the fact that people just aren't jonesing to go watch the latest thing that comes out and they feel like they can skip stuff. I think that's the problem. I want to get back to the point where it's almost obsessive because that's when the MCU was fun. The MCU was at its peak when you absolutely had to see the next thing. You had to be first in line and you had to be there looking at, just don't feel like we're there anymore. I don't know that we will be until Fantastic Four. That's the problem.
What do you think, Jared? I don't know. I mean,
well, I think there's the movie people. I think there's the regular Joe Blow who loves all the Marvel movies and he'll go watch all of them. I think he's in one category. And then I think there are the Tim and the Jarids who, well, it says Marvel in the beginning of the credits, whether it's on TV or not. So I feel like I need to watch it. And I like that there is that split that you can just go to the movie theaters and you can be those people and they have to see everything and they're good. But then there's stuff for Tim and I who can watch it and then catch different Easter eggs and things over in this aspect. What I think the biggest mistake of this show is the timing, because Marvel is coming off the 11th biggest movie of all time, Deadpool and Wolverine, and they followed it up with this 9-episode Agatha all along. And so I feel like they just kind of killed their momentum. People have been dogging them for the past 2 years. This sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. And then you were back on the mountain and they said, oh, Deadpool and Wolverine saved Marvel. What are we going to release next? Well, we're going to delay X-Men 97 and give you Agatha. Part of that reasoning, though, and I know that you're not big into speculation, Dan, but my guess is the speculation is that Mephisto is going to show up in Agatha.
Who was mentioned in this episode. So, yeah.
There's a lot of talk about him being a big baddie in Ironheart. And Ironheart was already filming when Agatha was announced. So I think that this might be a way to kind of pump him up so that he makes a little more sense in Ironheart. And I think that's why Agatha came out way before Ironheart, when it was already, it's been done for 2 years.
I think I think they did not anticipate the success of Deadpool Wolverine, because honestly, I did read some of and look at some of the scuttlebutt and rumor around Deadpool and Wolverine, and there was a battle to make that movie the way it needed to be made and make it a quality movie. Ryan Reynolds had to fight with Disney to make that movie. I mean, he got the deal and then he had to keep insisting upon the deal. Like, look, no, you gave me creative control. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to make it this way. Yeah. So they didn't want the movie made the way it was. I don't know that they anticipated how big a hit was going to be, because, I mean, they believe their own BS. They're in that bubble. That's why they keep making the same mistakes. But I think you look at this came out and how do we capitalize? And I think they looked at what they had in the chamber, and this might be the highest quality thing they have ready to go. Yeah, because they're going to crap the bed after this. I mean, you're following this with Cap.
This 4. Is crapping the bed as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, but what they have that's better. Cap 4 is going to be awful.
It's going to be terrible.
They've reshot it 7 times. They spent like $8 billion. They've spent the GDP of a medium-sized European nation to remake again this movie. There is no way it is any good.
There's no way. I agree. There's no way. Harrison Ford is in the movie. That's all I need to know, because Harrison Ford only does movies to get paid. That's it. Okay. And so right now, the reason that I think we're already in the dumps is because I think that this particular project, the only reason I think this project exists right now is because I think Kathryn Hahn was promised her own project in order to come on board for WandaVision. That's the only reason that it makes sense.
Here's the thing. There's at least one, or there's a few people that made this show because they wanted to and were excited about it. One of them being Kathryn Hahn, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single person on the set that was excited to make Cap 4.
No.
Not one, including Mackie. I mean, he's like, no. Can I just make some more Twisted Metal or something? This is, people didn't like the TV show. Why are we making a movie?
Yeah.
Dan did not see Eternal, so he's not gonna even understand Captain 4.
Yeah.
No spoilers there, Dan, but you're not gonna know what's going on.
He'll. The thing is, it really won't take long to figure it out, though, Jared. Like when they introduce it, so
it won't take all 3 hours.
It won't matter, because unless somebody ties me to a chair and pins my eyelids back, I will not be watching Cap 4.
And I think one of my biggest problems with shows like this, okay, is that I think a lot of people, and I got these people at She-Hulk, right? Like the people that were just like, oh, well, She-Hulk was a very successful comic and it was very comic accurate and all this. I got all kinds of, opinions like that. I hated She-Hulk. I absolutely despised it. And the reason that I think I despised it is because I'm willing to acknowledge that there's stuff in the Marvel universe that is just not for me. Okay. And She-Hulk is one of those. I've never enjoyed She-Hulk comics, never wanted to, never thought about it, never picked one up, never decided that it was something that I needed to get invested in ever. Okay. And so the difference in media is that I don't have the same option that I have in a comic book store. If I go into a comic book store and there's a She-Hulk comic and I'm not interested in that, I can just move on to something else that they released that week that I am interested in. That's the problem with media right now, is the media is focusing, they're introducing this stuff as if there's other options. There's no other new Marvel show this week, right? So what else am I going to go to? I just skip over it and say, oh, let's go to the new Captain America show. Let's go to the new Iron Man show. I can't do that. It's not like it is with the comic book store. And so the approach, and that's why I think the amount of content that they're giving us that isn't to the key demographic of 18 to 45 males, I think that's working counterproductive to the MCU. And that's my whole problem with it.
This is intrinsic. Marvel used to be a comic book company that licensed some of its IP to make other things, toys, video games, movies, cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel is now a full-time film studio that also publishes some comic books on the side. So they have to have a full slate of film and television projects every year because they are a film studio. And in addition to being a film studio, they're a subsidiary. They're part of a larger studio. So they're owned by Disney. They have to produce movies and shows, at least 3 or 4 things like a year minimum, because they got this whole infrastructure. You got to feed the beast. They got to keep churning stuff out.
Yeah.
And they can only churn stuff out within their own IP.
Yeah.
Because they're a subsidiary of Disney. Disney bought them to make movies about Marvel characters. It's not like they're going to go get a Dark Horse character and make a movie. It's not like they're going to get an original script and make that movie. They have to keep making movies about established Marvel characters. And I'm going to be honest, guys. I mean, they just acquired Fox, so you've got the X-Men. But, I mean, by and large, outside of X-Men, they've ran through all the good ones. All of the ones that appeal to the target key demographic have already been done, or at least 90% of them.
Yeah, I think there's still some openings, but for the most part, you're correct. We still haven't seen Ghost Rider. I think Ghost Rider could really. We're got this Blade thing in limbo. There's still a lot of
Daredevil. Yeah, a lot of.
We've got Daredevil.
Well, Daredevil's coming. Haven't got him yet, but yeah.
But even with Agatha, I mean, Agatha was an old woman witch in the Fantastic Four books and was the nanny of Franklin Richards. And instead, we de-aged her, turned her into a totally different character, and said, well, this will be Agatha. It would be like making a show off Kat Dennings' character in Thor, Dark World. Why am I watching this? There's so many IPs. Give me a Mystique and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants show. Literally anything before a character like Agatha. It just doesn't make any sense. We went with Agatha and Eternals, and we said we're good on Ghost Rider and Blade and any X character. I mean, you could do one on the life of Moira McTaggart, just playing in her lab or something like that. So I think that's a big part of it for us, like that core demographic. You've got so many IPs, and they might not be the Caps, Spider-Man, and Hulks, but you have some IP that we watched on the cartoons growing up and we read in the comic books, and instead you went with Franklin's Babysitter and changed the character to the core. And with that, then too, you again said, let's not only do that, but let's dig in our heels, like what Tim was saying in the appeal. Like, we're going to have a female-led show. Yeah, female empowerment. That's great. And the whole supporting cast is going to be this multicultural, diverse, group of witches to show you how woke and great that we are. And then we're going to bring in a kid, but he's not just any kid. We have to also check that box and make sure he's a gay kid. So we'll bring him in, and just it's almost kind of like we're pushing it in your face to let you know this isn't for you. And if you don't like it, you're a misogynist and a racist, and you're not a real Marvel fan, because you can't say you don't like these because they're not in the comics, because they are in the comics. This is not the comics. Even a little bit. This is Alice in Wonderland meets Hocus Pocus meets a terrible, terrible Broadway show is what they
Let's see. And here's where I'm at. There are a few, there's scraps on the table.
Sure.
Ghost Rider, I feel like they're staying away from Ghost Rider because there's still a little bit of public consciousness of the Nick Cage Ghost Rider. So that, and then they also have this ambiguous idea of whether Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was canon or not. And they had Ghost Driver in that. Now, they called him Rider, but you don't ride a car. We had this discussion at the car lot, Tim. You don't ride a car, you drive a car. So that is not Ghost Rider, that is Ghost Driver. so maybe they already did burn. But that's the other thing. The continuity is getting so loose in what is canon and what isn't. They can go back and forth one day to the next, whether Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon, is Agent Carter canon, are the Netflix shows canon? Maybe not. Depends which executive you ask and what day you ask him. So Ghost Rider's on the table. All of the X-Men are on the table because even though you've got Deadpool and Wolverine, they were very clearly established as being on a different Earth, a different continuity. Basically the Fox Earth was given a number. What was it, 1006? And it's not the main line, which I don't know about you guys, but I don't like that they stole the number from the comic continuity for the MCU. That
nobody that's a comic book fan does, but nobody
that's not the core continuity, guys. I'm sorry.
But basically all the Midnight Suns properties, all the Defenders properties, they're all there. You know what I mean? And they all have much more appeal towards the key demographic. I just don't understand why, and they own the rights to those characters. I just don't get it. It feels like, and the way that they're introducing some of those characters, having Daredevil's first appearance being She-Hulk
maybe it wasn't, because maybe Netflix is canon.
But it was
maybe Netflix is canon. They did bring in
Dan. They changed it. Okay, they changed it. That's why they're
reshooting the Daredevil show with cast members from the Netflix show.
I understand that. Okay,
so I think they're deciding.
It's a complete. The Kingpin has been a completely different character since they introduced him, so it's clearly a different universe, and they're probably going to have some explanation for that. But right now we're getting those introductions to those characters, and I'm not really happy with the way that they've done that. But a lot of those characters they're just leaving sitting there. And
here's what I'm saying.
What are we doing? You're giving me Agatha, you're giving me Echo. All right. Luke Cage is sitting right there, man. He's sitting right there.
But they did Luke Cage. Luke Cage.
Okay, so do him again. Is there one storyline from Luke Cage? Can we do another story from Luke Cage? He's sitting right there.
But here's what I'm saying. They're emptying the basket. I like that they're doing characters like Agatha. I don't like that Fantastic Four is coming out. I don't want any other marquee characters introduced into this continuity. I don't want into this continuity.
Well, but Fantastic Four is technically coming out after Secret Wars, right, Jared? Is that the schedule? Oh no, it's before. Okay, it's before.
Yeah, because here's the thing. We've already had a really good X-Men connected. It had its faults, but for the time and as it was, overall, it was a pretty good series of movies for the X-Men. Not great, but good.
The first two were okay.
Well, and the Wolverine had a good standalone movie. What they call it, where they restarted in the 60s? The
First Class.
First Class is good. The Days of Future Past movie was pretty good, which I know that is that the name. That's not the name of the movie. That's the name of the storyline.
No, that's the
Okay.
that's the Days of Future Past.
So,
Yeah.
so we've had some good X-Men movies. We've had some bad Fantastic Four movies, but these characters have been adapted in movies where they were the only attraction before. The real selling point of having them in the MCU was that they're going to be interacting with the other Marvel heroes,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
But the other Marvel heroes are all gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where I hear you, Dan. I mean, that's where I hear you. Okay. Yep. I guess my question is, if they're not going to be doing
reboot
that
before you bring out anybody big like X-Men or Fantastic Four, you need to reboot.
I just don't think Disney's going to do that. That's my problem. I don't think Disney's going to do that. And they're very, very into having, a continuity that includes Shang-Chi and the Eternals and, all these characters they've introduced. They're very, very into that. And I just don't understand why. It's like, if it was up to me, when we saw that things were starting to go downhill, I would have been like, boom, reboot. But they're not going to do that. And if they're not going to do that, they at least need to be focusing on their key demographic. You know what I mean? So,
So you don't think they're going to reboot at Secret Wars? Because
I think Secret Wars is the reboot. Yeah. But where I think Dan and I struggle is, I don't think they're going to be doing a thing that brings like Cap and Iron Man back into the MCU after Secret Wars. And that's kind of where we're at with it. It's like, if these guys are gone anyway, that might be the problem. So,
I mean, why would you introduce a whole new version of the Fantastic Four right before a reboot?
Yeah. And it's a period piece, right? So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Now, me and Tim don't agree on this. I believe that Fantastic Four will be shot in a way that it can be a soft reboot. It's set in the 60s. It doesn't have to refer to anything else in this continuity. There could be some scenes in there that make you think it is, that could be cut very easily. And I think based on how like Cap 4 and Thunderbolts play out, which we all know is going to be terribly, they're going to be able to make some small edits to Fantastic Four and say, we're starting over. Continuity starts again in the 60s. The Fantastic Four is the first family of Marvel, which is what they always should be.
I have a very different theory. Are we still talking about Agatha? Or are we going on to different? Are we talking about
Jared, you're going to learn very quickly that Dan and I are very tangential talkers. So, yeah.
We like rabbit holes. We go down them all the time. We're like Alice.
But yeah, talk about your theory, Jared, and then we will come back around to Agatha. Let's do that.
So what my thought is, if you look at Secret Wars had Battle World, right? And in Battle World, in the 25th, well, they both had Battle World, the 84 series.
You're talking about the Hickman run, right?
Yeah. In the 2015 run, there's all these different places. So if that's what we're going to bring in Fantastic Four, is that place from the 60s, and then we're going to bring in the X-Men, and it's going to be their kind of thing. And then there's those other movies that have question marks that we're not being told are where are those coming from. And Sony's Spider-Man is kind of the glue that brings it all together and reboots with these different eras. It seems to me that Fantastic Four will be one of those spots that restarts the continuity, and this will be the Fantastic Four. But we're going to get new Iron Man and new Captain America, new Hulk. I mean,
I don't know if we are with those. I do think we definitely are getting, like you talked about, the Fantastic Four, and I think because that's what Secret Wars is. Secret Wars compounds all the universes into one. Okay, I guess the main question would be, are they going to reboot the characters? But yeah, anyway,
they have to. Iron Man is what they made all their money on. You can't let him just on the shelf. He's got
I put this out to you, Tim. So you've got Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and then Giant Man and the Wasp, right? And they're a package deal, right? If you don't have two of those four, you don't have the Avengers. Is the way I look at it. It's like Guns N' Roses. Like Axl could go on tour without Slash, but nobody believed that was Guns N' Roses. That's just Axl Rose and 5 random dudes. I mean, you know that's like it's the Rolling Stones. If you don't have Mick and Keith, then you don't have the Rolling Stones. If you got Mick and Keith, you can get 3 you can get 3 brooms and stand them in the corner and be like, okay, yeah, it's still the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
The Avengers, my Avengers must-haves, you have to have out of this. You need to have Cap, Iron Man, Thor, Ant-Man and the Wasp, or Giant Man, or whatever. You need 2 of those 4 on your lineup.
Yeah,
2 of them. And Giant Man and the Wasp, you can't have them by themselves. They need to be there together. And I'm talking about Pym. I'm not talking about any legacy Ant-Mans. Those are the ones I think, because the originals had Hulk, but the MCU has warped the public sensibility of the Hulk being an Avenger. The Hulk was an Avenger for like an issue and a half.
Yeah,
it was never an Avenger again in the comics because Hulk smash. That's what Hulk does. He's not a superhero who teams up with other superheroes come and fight the Hulk. He doesn't team up with them. So, and they don't have that. They don't have that. So they don't have, and they're going to make movies called The Avengers. And you're looking at this lineup and you're like, that's not the Avengers. Yeah. What Jared, do you think the lineup they're going to roll out is the Avengers?
Well, I think you're correct, except for I wouldn't count the Avengers as being a group if we just had Giant Man and Wasp as 2 of those 5 being on the Avengers. I think you would have to have, I would say probably maybe from the 4, like Cap, Thor, and Iron Man. You just have to have them. And you can maybe lose one of them. You can do Avengers without Thor, but you got Cap and Tony. Or you can do it. It's really hard for me to do Avengers without Captain America. I feel like it's Captain America and really anybody else makes the Avengers for me. But I guess I'm kind of looking forward to a Falcon Cap, Ironheart, and Jane Thor. That would, and then She-Hulk.
Or would it be Mini Thor? Would it be Mini Thor that was at the end?
Here's the other caveat: no legacy versions.
About War Machine,
Tony, Iron Man, Steve, Cap, Thor.
All right, so let's try to bring this back to Agatha just a little bit here. Okay. So I think that we've got on this discussion about the MCU, which is great, but this episode, okay, I think it was as predictable an episode as there possibly could be. I'm wondering. I mean, Dan, you and I called this last week. We said we're gonna have kind of this video game-esque plot. Each episode is gonna be kind of its own get to the next level kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I guess it was very reminiscent. Now that the style is kind of very reminiscent of like Resident Evil or Saw, where it's just like you get to the next stage and then you're kind of locked in and you got to figure out a way out of the puzzle. It's almost like an escape room type thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of what it felt like. So I don't know. I mean, what were you guys' thoughts on that? And do you think, do you guys really think that was a unique take, given the fact that we essentially predicted the whole thing last week?
So here's what it is, what I thought it was, and I'm here for it. I enjoyed it. I liked it. There was it's a Halloween special for the modern age, for the streaming age. And this, 20 years ago, it would have been 60 minutes long with commercials in it. So this would have been like 45 minutes of runtime. It would have had a similar tone. We got some creepy, but not so creepy backstory for each of our witches. It's a little mini origin for everybody with the tame your fears with the hallucinations that they were having. We got a little slapstick fun with the swollen faces.
Different kind of cheeks than we got last week, right?
Yeah, different kind of cheeks. To me, the tone is not overtly comedic, which I thought it would be more of a comedy, but it's less of a comedy. It's more of a dramedy. I I don't mind the performances. I thought that the what's her name, Lila, that was pretty creepy. She had the whole Shining thing with the girl that she followed that looked like it was probably a younger version of herself.
That was
I
really
feel like they could have got a family member. She looked very much like a younger version of her that she was following, and then got the creepy. They're all dead. She was speaking her native language or something. We did get follow up episode 1 when she was stuck in her True Detective crime drama.
The baby. Yeah.
They went in there and there was a whole room of stuff for a missing child, a missing son with like trophies and stuff. We're like, what is that? Well, now we've got the conversation. She gave up her son or her child to get the Book of the Dead. Then she has the hallucination, and it's a bassinet with the Book of the Dead in it. So we're getting a little bit of Agatha backstory that is obviously going to be fleshed out. I think we're going to get Aubrey Plaza back as the Green Witch, who's going to meet them on the road.
She's really the only thing I'm looking forward to seeing again. And an episode without her, honestly, was just borderline unwatchable to me. And then Deborah Jo Rupp, halfway through the episode, like passed out, and they just laid her on the couch, and she was done. You know what I mean? So it's like the two things that may be interesting in the show, Deborah Jo Rupp being the same character that she is in everything, or Aubrey Plaza, who was the only character that I thought was worth a darn in the first 2 episodes. And now we had an episode without them. So it was just not really my thing. So.
She stole the first 5-10 minutes. Man, when she was fighting the ground for her bag from Talbot's, that was great. I don't care. You guys can hate it all.
That's just Deborah Jo Rupp being funny. She's played that character 1,000 times, and so I'll laugh at it every time. But do I want it in the MCU? No. So, Jared, what do you think? But
yeah, how does this fit in with any other Marvel property? I mean, that's kind of the question I always ask when I watch a Marvel show. Can this take place in the same world that Infinity War, that Winter Soldier, and that Iron Man 3 took place in? No, it can't. This just doesn't matter to me. This is just a waste of my Wednesday night for the next 6 weeks after this, because I am a completist and I can't not watch it just in case there's something, even though it's going to be revealed on the internet the next day. Like, yeah, I didn't even hear them say Mephisto until I looked up spoilers today, and they're like, big character named. I didn't hear anybody. Oh, they said I must have fallen asleep. I don't know. Like Dan, some of the stuff that Dan was referring to in his review, I don't remember that happening. I really don't remember that. I think the tough part for me is this episode was very coincidental. Everything just happened to fall in place. And it's not that it hasn't happened in other Marvel shows or series, but this was every single thing aligned. Petroleum products. Well, good thing they've got skincare in the bathroom. What?
They are in a magical realm in basically a supernatural escape room. So I mean, everything you need is gonna be there. You're trapped in
an actress like Patti LuPone, I think, was wasted with this SNL chick and all this. And like you said, this is Kitty from that 70s show. She's never played another role. So I was just very disappointed. It's worse than what I thought it was going to be. If that puts it into perspective, I knew it was going to be bad, but it's worse. And I texted Tim too. I think I said, "Did you know this was 9 episodes? I thought it was 6. I thought it was 6, and now it's 9." Oh, I know what I wanted to say, Dan. To your point about the Halloween thing, Marvel figured out Halloween when they did Werewolf by Night. That was perfect. That was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, so we talked about that last week.
This should have been a Man Thing one-off episode. Why are we trying to reinvent the wheel with Agatha?
I watched Werewolf by Night, and I really liked it. I even watched the making of thing that came out a few weeks. I don't think a lot of people watched it.
I don't think so either.
I don't hear much discussion of it. I like it. I also like that it was very much a special. Like they made it like this is a Halloween. This is a seasonal special. It had its own special like opening credit thing, like it was an old school TV special. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it got viewership. I think that was
Agatha had a purple red carpet with A-list stars coming to it. Werewolf by Night was like, hey, we got this thing. It's about a werewolf. You've probably seen it before. It's in black and white, so don't really worry about it. It was like the best thing they did for a year. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, you guys still want the MCU to work. I'm convinced it's done, and I'm just waiting for the reboot.
I think that's kind of the big difference, Dan. That's the big difference.
Yeah.
Is I think that Jared and I are thinking to ourselves that yes, you might declare yourself like the coroner saying the MCU is dead. Okay,
Yeah.
but me and Jared are sitting here saying no. We're well aware that the MCU is dead. I guess that the question is, with what they have, can they still put out a watchable and exciting product?
You guys are kicking that dead horse.
Well,
just
they've done it in the comics. They've done it in the comics for years, where they go too long. They go way too long with every comic series. That's okay. It's just that they still can make it captivating. They still can make it exciting. They still can have good character stories. There's all kinds of things they can do, and they definitely can gear it more towards their key demographic than they're doing.
I'm a guy. I'm the only one of the three of this that is upset that he's missing Thursday Night Football. Okay, so I'm going to throw my man card out there and say, okay, yeah, I'm the only one drinking beer while we talk about this. Okay, domestic. I swung a hammer today.
Okay. Yeah,
but I like it. This show it's fun, it's funny, it's got a little bit of drama and intrigue to it. To me, the only parts where it does fall apart, the parts I don't enjoy, is when it tries to tie back to the larger Marvel universe. Because like I said, we talked about this last week. In the first episode, the worst part for me was seeing Wanda, because it didn't occur to me at the beginning that the crushed to death woman in the woods was Wanda.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it should. Yeah.
Until I saw it on her foot, and you're like, duh, I should have thought of that.
It should have. Being reminded that they smashed Wanda with a temple at the end of Multiverse of Madness was the worst part of the whole thing for me. So it's like salt in the wound, because, again, I like Multiverse of Madness. All right. I loved WandaVision. The two don't work together.
Yeah.
This continuity is broken, and reminding me of that is annoying. So I like it better when they don't even try to tie it together. I'm much more happy.
Jared will remember this. Maybe I'm like Jared. As soon as the trailer for WandaVision came out during the Super Bowl, I texted Jared, and I was just like, I could not be less interested in that show. It looks terrible. I don't know what in the world they're doing. Dick Van Dyke show. What are they doing? and I loved WandaVision. It was the first thing that I watched where I just thought, I can't believe I didn't think of that direction. I can't believe, and I was making theories and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I would prefer a lot more of that with this show. If they could do something, I mean, we're doing the same style of character. I'm confused as to why. I mean, I know they did the first episode. I would have liked a lot more of those callbacks to the genre specific type stuff, because I think that's what made WandaVision so successful, is that they were able to weave that into the show and into the greater Marvel universe and make it make sense. Doing that one episode and then basically going into this show that has this really standard format now, I'm just not all about that. And on top of that, I don't think that the stakes are very, very small. The only stakes that there are right here are for Agatha herself, who she's a bad guy. I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't care if she ever finds anything, I don't care if she ever finds her powers or does any of this stuff. They want to try to make me care about the fact that she gave up her kid and all that. I don't care about all that. Okay.
I do think the same way that we felt like the first episode was maybe a vestige of a earlier version of this show.
It's what it had to be. Yeah.
That followed the format of Wanda, only with dramas, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the set for this episode may have been, the building might have began during an earlier version of this show.
Yeah.
Because this set could have been for a whole episode set in a Desperate Housewives or even like Dallas or Dynasty type show. Like I think there was a version of this show in the early draft somewhere where they did genre jumps where they stayed in character, kind of like WandaVision, for whole episodes in different genres. Because this set felt like, okay, you could have done a whole episode here where they thought they were Desperate Housewives characters.
Yeah, you could have, I guess. I don't know. I feel like they abandoned that very quick, and what they abandoned it for, I just was not into. That's just me. So,
but I'm happy that you like it, Dan. Like, for real, I'm excited. Yeah. That's good that you enjoy it. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, see, I think the thing is that we all got exactly what we were expecting. They told us what it was. Yeah. They didn't lie to us. There was no false advertising here. And from jump, you guys knew you wouldn't like it.
Totally.
I thought I would. And we're all right. We were all right, and they didn't lie.
Yeah.
So at least we gotta give them credit for that. Like, there's a lot of things that I have no interest in, but I can't get upset if you don't lie to me.
They lied in that I didn't think it would be this bad. I thought it was going to be like a 3 or a 4, and this is like a 1.5 or a 2. So I do feel a little upset about that. Like, wow, Marvel, I thought it was going to be bad, and you said, "Hold my root beer." All right, you got it.
I'm still it's still up in the air as to whether or not I hate it more than She-Hulk. Okay, it's still, it's a race to the bottom. Okay, the one thing I thought was really interesting about this episode in particular is that there is a phrase that has been on everybody's mouth about this show. The people that like it, the people that don't like it, was the phrase that everybody was using. We had it in our comments last week. Wine moms. Okay, this is for wine moms. And what did they do this episode? The second week, they had all these ladies at a wine party. It's almost like they knew right away that was going to be the talking point that was going to be out there, is, oh, this is just for wine moms. That, to me, it was almost just too on the nose. Okay, to have all the, what are they going to do next? They're going to all end up locked in a Bath and Body Works. I mean, I just don't know what to, this is just one of those things. I just cannot find myself getting interested in this no matter how hard I try. And I generally would like a holiday special type show, a Halloween special type show or something like that. If you did something like that, but you did it with Blade or Ghost Rider or something like that, would be really cool, I think. But this Agatha show, man, they just had to do it. So here we are.
I thought the hallucinations were creepy, but not too creepy. A little bit scary, and the ticking clock was there with an actual ticking clock counting down
on the nose once again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did stop on the road and announced, like, flat out, okay, so there's going to be a challenge for each specialty.
Yeah,
that was in the dialogue. I mean, they couldn't just let that roll out. It doesn't bother me. I feel like it's been a fun romp. I think the pace is good. It's clipping along at a good fast pace. And
but if I would have seen the green water, I would have said, "Yeah, that's teal, totally teal." It worked. I would have stopped the spell right there, and we could jump in the oven. Let's get going.
I don't really like, and I don't know, man. There's a lot that I'm trying to like process with this to try to make sure that I can make it to next week. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of possibilities for, at the very least, something that might be interesting in the greater MCU. Okay, that would be the only thing. That would be the only thing that would be relatively interesting to me, is if there's something that can tie to another story.
There's nothing interesting in the greater MCU, Tim. That's only thing interesting about the greater MCU.
I'm really hoping they don't do it because of that, but that would be the only thing that would make me kind of like want to watch the show week to week. Right now,
the only thing interesting about the greater MCU is when they announce the reboot, Tim. That is the only thing interesting. They have a movie about a Captain America who was in a show that nobody liked. That's been reshot 6 times. They got another movie starring 3 characters from a movie that almost nobody saw, and only half of those people liked. And out of the half of the people who liked it, almost all of them hated one of the 3 that they're bringing back for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to add to those 3 a character nobody remembers from a movie people don't really remember, that start a character whose last movie almost everybody hates.
I'm getting confused.
I was going to say, you're losing me here, Dan.
It's Thunderbolts.
Yeah,
that
Thunderbolts,
lineup is
okay.
awful.
So
Yeah.
It's like they went through and cherry picked. Let's make sure that we have at least one character to turn off everyone.
yeah.
And let's not pick anybody from the comic group. Let's not have any original Thunderbolts. It has to be just B-list characters and Bucky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
doesn't appeal to me at all, man. Like, I'm not interested in it. And
I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued by it.
it's what we just said. It's like basically the like 3rd build name on every MCU project for the last 2 years. Yeah, just throw them all in a blender and make a movie. It just doesn't sound interesting to me. And this is the biggest problem that I have with the MCU right now, is that kind of stuff. It's all going on.
Again, this show is pretty good on its own terms, doing what it set out to do. I mean, either you're into it or you're not. But wanting it to tie into all of that garbage is just going to bring it down. It needs to be more itself, because
it needs to be brought down, Dan. I mean, it really needs to be brought down. I mean,
okay, you may not be into it. You might not like what it has to sell, but what it has to sell is doing well. That's what I'm saying. What it set out to do, it's doing a death becomes her type of thing. It's doing
something else. I just want to mention briefly, and is the budget. The budget has not been disclosed, but it better not be like what Star Wars does at $15 million an episode. It better not be $15 million an episode, because this does not look expensive. Okay?
Well, not everything has to be that. These are actors talking in a room, so you're not going to spend that.
If this is $15 million an episode, I would say they just completely and totally lost their minds paying that much money. They haven't disclosed the budget yet, but if they have, I mean, the soundstage for everything looks awful. The road looks terrible. The
road looks like it's not supposed to look like a real place. It's a fantastic
good job. Then it looks like a soundstage. It looks like there's fog, Dan. There's fog and lighting up rose petals. Okay.
Yeah, it's a creepy mystical place.
It's
like
not a creepy
Halloween
mystical
special.
place, Dan. It looks like a Disney World ride. Okay. It looks like you are in the Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay.
That's a feature, not a fault. That's what it's going for. That is
okay.
Right.
So
that's the whole idea.
For this episode of Nerd Champs, I'm going to declare a draw between Tim and Dan. Both correct.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So everybody, that's this week on Nerd Side Chats. We got into some tangents. We talked about the future of the MCU. We talked about what it is and is not the Avengers. And we talked about Agatha all along. We'll be back next week to keep talking about it. And I suspect these guys will keep on hating it.
We're going to hate it.
I'm probably going to keep enjoying it, because I don't think it's going to give them the big universe shattering moments that they're looking for.
Nope.
But hey, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Come back next week and jump in the chat and let us know what you think. Till then, this has been Nerd Champs.